Good evening and welcome to another edition of Showtime TV, an episode of A Conversation with Men of Color. This is episode 9. I'm your host, Omar Rashada. Joining me live right here on Facebook Live, I have a very well-distinguished gentleman. Everybody pretty much knows him. He's a businessman, he's a career man, he's a professional man. Starting the program off with Jason Rodriguez. Jason, good evening. How are you?
Oh man, I'm all right. Thank you, Omar. I appreciate you for allowing me on your platform and your show. And I look forward to our conversation.
All right. Okay. Let's start off. Let's just get a general background of you. Talk about your educational background, your career background, family background.
Okay. Yes. Grew up in Brooklyn, New York native, Brooklyn.
All right. Brooklyn in the house.
Brooklyn in the house.
Brooklyn.
Sir. Moved down to Delaware like 2001 too. So, I'm a Delawarean now.
Okay, gotcha.
I had a short stint in Delaware Tech University. Was working on an associate's degree, didn't finish it. And then, a lot of entrepreneurial pursuits through my lifetime. And ended up opening up an insurance practice in Wilmington, Delaware.
Okay.
And that's what I've been doing ever since. I got my children live with me. I have a son that you may see on Facebook. I'm always featuring him.
Okay.
My featured guest. And I have a daughter as well. She's 17. She'll be graduating from high school next year. My son is 9.
Okay.
So most of my family is still in Brooklyn, New York, and I, generated a new family here in Delaware. Just family and friends. So.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now going back to your insurance, now what type of insurance do you deal with? Is it car insurance, house insurance, all the above?
Yes, sir. We do. Our agency handles it all. We are property and casualty brokers mainly, so we do auto, home, personal, business insurance, commercial liability, general, professional liability. So as far as, and then we have a life insurance division as well, which one of my partners handles. So anything dealing with insurance, we can definitely handle that or be a resource as well.
Okay, great. Okay, now join us live on episode 9, the conversation with Men of Color. Everybody knows this gentleman. Well, you got the best fish in town. Vernon Dupree, Senior. Good evening, Vernon. How are you? You on mute. You can get off on mute. Unmute yourself. Because anybody hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm doing great, man. Thank you.
Okay. So we're starting off the show just talking about your family background, your educational background, your career background.
Okay, well, I'm the son of a preacher. All right. I'm basically educated at Delaware State University. All right. Basically, I taught school for a number of years, owned 3 different restaurants.
Wow.
Basically, I have a catering business right now. And as you know, I do the fish fry on Fridays at the PAL. And right now, we only open from March to September. We're closed until next March, but I cater all year long.
Okay, got you. Now, but both of you gentlemen are entrepreneurs. A lot of us, when we go to college or take up a trade, we build a resume to work for someone else. But both of you gentlemen said, hey, listen, man, I'm doing my own business. So I want to start off with Vernon and then Jason. What prompts you to want to be an entrepreneur?
Well, basically, just always wanting to be self-sufficient and make my own money. I have no problem making someone else's money, but it's good when you control your destiny. You can do that yourself. So basically, I never really wanted to be a boss per se, but just wanted to have the freedom and to be able to do what I want when I want to do it.
Definitely. And just to stay with you, you have a pretty good staff. I'm not sure if it's just mostly family members or just people that you hired, but when dealing with the staff, because you're the owner, you're the CEO, you're the man up top. So you got to have people who work under you because they're a reflection of you and making sure your business is successful. So how do you go about picking your employees and making sure that you got the best restaurant in town?
Well, it's been a challenge. It's been a challenge over the 3 restaurants that I previously had. And that's been the biggest challenge is employees. And at this time, I'm fortunate enough to have my sons and my daughter who have grown up in the business and understand it. And they have some very close friends of theirs that work with us. So it's mainly family and close friends of the family that run the business right now.
Okay. So Jason, I want to pose that same question to you. What prompted you into wanting to be an entrepreneur?
Out of necessity, sort of like Mr. Vernon as well, wanted my own autonomy, and everybody around was entrepreneurs. I came out, when I came outside, the people I encountered was entrepreneurs. So they put that, they hit me with that entrepreneur bug, and I ain't been the same since, But being an entrepreneur, as you say, I had to, you learn a lot, experiences, because I was explaining when you first come out, you wing everything, and sometimes when you are first generation entrepreneur like myself, many of us Black people is first generation entrepreneurs. So we learn to wing business. And when you have a job, they teach you structure, there's certain protocols and controls in place to be able for you to run a corporation. So I missed that, but I'm learning that now. And that's a key to me growing and scaling my business as well.
Now, do you have employees working under you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so how do you go about hiring the right employees and make your business as successful as it possibly can be?
I mean, it's really hard to whether you hire the right employee. Over time, it'll let you know whether they're the right.
Right.
From the beginning, everybody's the right employee.
Right.
At that table, when you you're talking to somebody, everybody's the right fit. Until they come into your system, and then you learn them, and they start to learn you. And some people stay, and some people you just can't gel with.
Right.
It's and it's just a process of elimination, because we give opportunity to all.
Right.
We don't discriminate at all. We try to help everybody, and having that same autonomy to do something for themselves.
Yeah. I want to stick with business for a moment. One of the things that is very discouraging to me, because let's look from the outside in. This is what some of us do, not all of us, but this is what some of us do as African-American consumers. Let's say we go to Vernon's restaurant, Vernon's cater business. Vernon gives us a price. Let's say he gives a price, someone's having an event and you give a price for $100. Just as an example, top of my head. They come to you and say, yo, Vernon, man, can I get it for $65, $70? Now they go to an establishment that's non-African-American. That person may say $200 and they have no problem paying $200. We go to Jason's Insurance. Let's say for life insurance, you may charge $20 a month. Just think about this top of my head. Yo, Jason, can I get it for $17? And can I get it for $7.50? Now they go to another insurance company that's non-African American. They say, well, $25 a month. They had no problems paying $25 a month. Have any of you gentlemen ever experienced this? And so, what's your message to African American consumers? Vernon, like you want to start off?
Well, I'm gonna tell you, I've experienced it, and I still experience it to this day.
Wow.
I remember when my first restaurant, for instance, I took out a Yellow Page ad, half a page. That time it cost a lot of money. This is back in 1988, and because I was new to business, people were calling my business, asking for a price for catering. I was giving them prices, and come to find out, no one was calling me back after I gave them a price.
Right.
But I found out I was underpriced. And because I was underpriced, people wouldn't call me back because they didn't think it was legitimate, right? Because I have a half a page Yellow Page ad, so I'm getting good calls from corporations everywhere. So I learned fast that I had to give them the market price, right? Now, and years later, I was on DuPont Highway, my first restaurant, moved into the city and didn't have a Yellow Page ad. And I'm doing business with people and giving them prices. And then I start getting, well, can I get it for less? Because I'm dealing with a different clientele. And that negotiation was always strenuous. because I'm giving you a good price from the beginning, yet you want to, you know, knock me down and want to get it for that lesser price. And it made business hard. For me, it was the hardest part of dealing with business on the end. So really what I had to do was get someone else to handle that part of the business because I just didn't have the patience for it. So again, you know, you have to have the right mindset to deal with the people that are trying to come at you, right? And have a good answer for them. And you have to have your prices set. You have to stick with them.
Right. Right. Okay, Jason.
Yeah, sort of, you know, but we all have those. We don't want to get rid of those negotiation skills, you know. we just want to have a proper place to use them. And you know, when you go to certain businesses, they train you to how they want to do business with you. You know, so like you go to a Macy's, you know that you're not getting no discounts unless they got coupons in the back of the register, you know, so they give you an idea of how they want you to work with them. So we have to set that standard when we create our customer profile as well. So, but you know, those negotiating skills, everybody does it, and it's common in business. But you know, when we're not operating properly and we don't train the customer how they should deal with us and how we should deal with them, then you have those problems, you know. But when you set a price and you provide value, you know, you'll let them know, they'll see the value and be like, wow, you know, I'm getting it for a deal anyway, you know, because we try to over deliver to our clientele base. But you know, a lot of times we're taught to, you know, try to get a deal at any business, because you know, we always want to negotiate sometimes, you know, but it's just how the clientele, you know, how the persons treat your particular business. So,
right. Now, I touched on this on an earlier episode, but let's say that 20 is City of Wilmington, Delaware. I say 21st Market to 29th Market. I look at those ministers, man. It's us that live in the community. It's not showing that we own that community. It's basically someone else from the outside that's owning the business in our community. So as businessmen, I want to ask why. I mean, is it tough for African Americans to get business loans, or we're just not business minded? I mean, you guys are businessmen, so you probably know a lot more than me in terms of why is it that in our own communities, that's not just in the city of Wilmington, Delaware, but you look in Philly, you can look in New York, you can look at Pittsburgh, you can look at Detroit. It always appears that in the African American community, the businesses in those communities are not owned by us. Jason, what's your take?
And that's a key, because you know, we're not unified, and with that, everybody is so at odds with each other that we can't go in and create businesses in our own community and be sustained by our own community as well. So, you know, I always say, you know, our communities all over America, Black in particular, we have the most, you know, multicultural people in our community. You go to other communities, you don't see that. Why? Because, you know, they think the same. You know, they're not arguing over religion. You know, they have same ideology. So it comes to the common core, what they believe in. And then they don't patronize. A lot of people don't patronize other people as well. So we don't patronize anybody, you know. But when it comes to you, like you were just alluding to, when it comes to you and I, you know, a Black business, we want to get deals. We want to be we want to have criticism. You know, we want to be fault finders. You know, we always try to tear ourselves down because of the lack of love for self. You know, because if we really understood, you know, community development, we wouldn't let no outsider, you know, pull dollars from us, because at the same time, you know, they're sending their children to Yale and we don't have any opportunities for our children, you know? So it's very important that, you know, we start to come together and have a unified idea on how we're going to start supporting ourselves.
Right.
Can I jump in on this?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned between like 21st and Market and 29th and Market.
Right.
And you look at the businesses in there, you look at the neighborhood, it's a tough place to even drive through for me. You know what I mean? And so, and then you have Chinese restaurants, you have a lot of the Arab restaurants, owners of the businesses on those blocks. And from my experience, I started in 1988 with my first restaurant. Try to rent a property on Market Street, on 7th and Market Street, and had good backing. Some investors that had more than $1 million worth of equity, but they were out of state. And property on 7th and Market, they wouldn't rent it to us only because they said our main backer was out of state, which was a bunch of crap as far as I was concerned. Right. And going to the banks to open up a restaurant at that time, you weren't getting a dime. You weren't getting it. It just wasn't happening. Right. And it was discriminatory. And, really, you have different places like First State now and other places that you can go through and get business loans, but you have to go through the process. And I've been through the process and I'm eligible to get those loans. But at this point in my life, I'm not ready to invest. I've done enough and I'm pretty stable in terms of what I want to do with business. But through those years, from 1988 up until 2000, it was almost impossible to get funding for a restaurant unless you did it privately. And that's how I had to do it.
Yes, sir. And it's just to continue on what you were saying, a lot of these businesses, Chinese in them, they don't go to banks for loans. They
have their own.
They have their own. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we lack as a community. We lack these institutions that is going to enable us to be successful because we have the mindset of helping everybody, but nobody helps us in the end. We the most multicultural country. Like I said, you go down Market Street, it's multiple different nationalities, Chinese, Vietnamese, Dominicans, Arabs. And yet these are the communities that we live in, and we don't have nothing that we could call our own. But it just it goes to mindset. We always find things to argue about. We don't put programs in place where we can be the funders because we're not poor people. We're not poor people. We're just not allocating our resources properly to be able to fund endeavors in our community.
Right. 2 days ago, it was a big day here in the United States of America. It was election day. Prior to election, hip hop artist, actor, producer, director, Ice Cube had a plan that he developed as well, along with others, in terms of having an agenda for the African-American community. So we're still waiting in regards to who's going to be the next president of the United States. So I want to ask you two gentlemen, in terms of agenda for the African-American community, is there anything in particular that you guys see that needs to be addressed in terms of African-Americans in this country?
Oh, man. That's the whole subject right here.
Yes.
Well, it's two or three things. I should have said at the beginning. I know it's a lot. I mean, for example, some people may say the economy, we need more jobs. Some people may say reparations. Some people may say we got to deal with the mass incarceration of African Americans in prison. So, is there any particular issues that you two have been looking at for a good while?
Well, personally, I think since I was in education, I think education is one of the areas where I think we're really failing in our communities. We're not, even with I've taught in 3 charter schools. I've taught in 7 public schools. And when I look at education, we're not getting the education that we need in order to be successful for a lot of reasons. And there's a lot of internal things that are going on in education where they're just passing our kids through. And I watched it for a lot of years, very upset with it. Actually, I've been dismissed from a job for trying to fight against it. So right. It's a very tough situation. And even, the principals, the administrators, they're all concerned with numbers. It's not about education. They act like they're about education, but they're really not. They're about numbers and making their suspension rates go down. And the bottom line is really, discipline is a very tough thing in the public schools and in the charter schools. they actually will go along with the kids and the parents in order just to please them, just to have the enrollment. And if you have no discipline, you cannot teach kids. You know, I taught health and phys ed, and in a health class, in the 45-minute block, you were fortunate if you were able to teach 20 minutes without interruption. And if you have no discipline, the kids are not learning. So for me, I think education is one of the areas where we were really suffering.
Okay.
Yeah, that is key.
Do you have anything, Jason?
I mean, yes, I would say, justice. We want equal justice under the law, regardless of class, creed, or color, and we want equal membership with the best in civilized society as well. So, as we know, we being held out of multiple different industries. We don't have the true freedom to express ourselves the way we desire to. You see the injustices that go on with our community all the time. So there's a lot we need to do, but it also goes down to education. We need the proper education. There's the education in these school systems doesn't work for our people. They start us off in slavery majority of the time. When you start somebody off in that area, when they know we have a great history that goes beyond slavery, so we need a different educational system for these to capture these youth's attention. We need relationship building. We need to learn about love. We need to learn about responsibility. We need to learn about keeping our word. So there's a lot that we need, and the only people that's going to solve that is you and I. I don't really believe that no president, no person outside of our own is going to be able to solve our problems. That takes concerted effort with us men in our community to deal with the problems that's in our community. And we have the resources to do so. It's no longer we lack resources. We just lack unity. We lack a unified effort to do something for ourselves. So once we get that ideology that, hey, I need you, you my brother, I'm not going to dwell on what we don't agree on. I'm going to dwell on what we do agree on, and we're going to build on that. We're going to set the foundation because you and I is responsible for our community,
Right. Speaking of education, to staying on that for a little bit, my parents, when they were in school, either had 3 schools for African Americans in the city of Wilmington. There were Howard, PS, or Wilmington High. So then later on, you had busing. And I heard many people express that when busing took place, that pretty much killed it for education. The majority of the kids in the city were bused to the suburbs and vice versa. So Vernon, you said you was a teacher. So my 2-part question is, do you think that going to the suburbs and busing kind of took us down in terms of education? And then you being an African-American male teacher, man, I didn't really see too many African-American male teachers, when I was going to school. So were there other African-American male teachers when you were teaching that?
Very few. And that's one of the biggest problems. We don't have enough African-American teachers. And there's so many different problems when you talk about education. Mm-hmm. What comes to mind is, even with the VOTEC schools, right? If you look in the regular public schools, we used to have, when I came through school in 7th and 8th grade middle school, we had electric shop, wood shop, all kinds of shops. And then they were all taken out. And then you had to apply to go to VOTEC schools to get those skills. Right. So what they did, they pretty much stripped us of vocations, making us apply to go to Howard, to Hodson, and all those type of schools. Systematically, they've actually killed the Black kids. And when you look at DSEG in 1978, even though I wasn't here, because I'm really from New Jersey.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
What was happening when they DSEG? I went to But mind you, I went to elementary school here, then we moved to New Jersey. But
Okay, got you.
when they desegregated the schools, right? They desegregated the schools where they said, we're going to desegregate the schools because we want to give you better books, better education, and all the 9 yards. Well, that was the biggest mistake that could have happened to our community. What they should have did was gave us the resources and kept us together, because when they desegregated, and then you had to bus to Concord, you had to bus to Alexis I. DuPont and all the other schools in the suburbs, right? Then how did the parents get to the meetings? So you didn't have parents going to the meetings. You didn't, not making appointments. You could, when I was coming up, my parents could walk right down the street to the school.
Right.
But these kids now, they can't, it's not happening. So, there's a disconnect, and that disconnect has caused our community.
Right. That's definitely true. Before I forget, I ask this question every episode. Both of you gentlemen are fathers, and I want to get to this now while the conversation is high. What are the joys for you personally in terms of being a father? I want to start with Jason.
Just seeing my children grow respectfully, teaching them to love themselves, love their people, and spread love in the atmosphere, and just having an environment of peace. Being able to support them and teach them what a father's like, being there for them. Teaching them responsibility. The things that many of us have lacked, even myself. Teaching them how to be responsible, teaching them what's right and what's wrong, and always stand on truth. Those are the greatest things. Those are where I find joy in being a part of my children's lives, letting them know, helping them navigate in this world that they're going to be in many times, making decisions on their own and making sure they make the right decisions. It just brings me a lot of joy.
All right. Vernon?
Well, I have the joy in knowing that I had 3 children, a daughter and 2 sons, and all of them went through college, and all of them went to get their masters, and they've been successful in doing so through education. I'm very proud of that. And people tell me I did a good job. I didn't do a good job. If it wasn't for God praying me through those situations, because they've all gone through some turmoil in reaching where they're going, because number one was just being black young men and women, and they've navigated it, and I give the great credit to God, because that's who really brought them through. It's been a joy to see that they're self-sufficient, and they're older now, so they have their families of their own. It's a blessing.
Both of you gentlemen have sons. So let me ask, well Jason, your son is 9 years old, I believe you said. And Vernon, your sons are adults. Having African-American sons, Black sons, have you ever had to have Jason, I'm not sure if this applies to you right now, but possibly in the future, you can touch on that. But I want to start off with Vernon. Have you ever had to sit down and have that talk with your sons? When I say that talk, I'm talking about they're driving their car late at night, and for some unforeseen reason, they get stopped by the police. Have you had to talk to your sons in terms of how to act, what to do if they get stopped by the police? Because one thing leads to another, and you may have cases like Rodney King or whatever, because the relationship among the police and the African-American men in particular have not always been the best.
Well, I haven't had to talk because of my background and my wife's background. My wife was a correctional sergeant. I was a correctional officer, and we were in law enforcement. So again, they grew up knowing pretty much what was going on in terms of that. And I've always been open with them about every experience I had with the police, myself personally. I mean, even, and it's crazy, but both of my kids have called the police. 2 of my kids have called the police on me because I'm disciplining them.
Oh.
Right. And 2 times the police officers have come to my house because my kids have called the police. and both times I knew the police officer, and the police officer had to pull them aside and said, "You better straighten up." So they pretty much understand what's going on in terms of we've been around law enforcement forever. See, and that's another thing with education. And what the counselors are telling the kids in school, well, your parents can't do this, your parents can't do that. And they had the audacity to call the police on me. So that's, you know, and they were young, and that's, you know, that's what they're being taught in the schools. And so really it wasn't to the point where that I hit them. That wasn't the case. It was the fear of what I was going to do that prompted them to call the police. So, it's been crazy like that. But they pretty much knew, because I was very open with them about experiences. And I always told. I grew up in Camden, New Jersey, going from junior high school to high school. So I told them about our experiences that we had with the police and the things that happened. So it wasn't like I had to sit down and talk to them. I've always talked to them, so they pretty much knew.
Right. Okay, so Jason, you have a little one, 9 years old. Is that something that you thought about, that maybe when it gets 14, 15, 16, you may have that talk with them?
Yes, sir. Definitely got to have that talk. But, you know, my son, you know, at 9 years old, he's very advanced. If you know these 9-year-olds, they're like adults.
Yes, they are.
Can definitely compute at a high level. So I teach my son, you know, respect all in authority as long as it doesn't conflict with your religion. You know, so we're taught to respect everyone, you know, and there's ways that and then we don't keep late hours anyway, you know, unless he's coming to and from work, you know, as we grow older, because he see me, I don't keep late hours. And we don't try to put ourselves in situations where things like that can occur. You know, you gotta be protected. You gotta be in situations where that may not, you know, you out late night, you know, it's dark outside, you know, these officers is very nervous. You know, they're in communities where they don't feel safe. So, you know, you outside 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and they can't really see. That can be tragic, you know, or even during the daylight hours, you know, depending on where you at. You know, you just got to be able to respect authority. And from my encounters, when they come to the car and you treat them like respect, I mean, hey, how you doing, sir? You know, what's going on? How may I help you? You know, a lot of times, you know, we get combative, you know, at the end of the day, you gotta humble yourself, you know, and we'll deal with that on another level, you know.
Right. You know, there's been talk that whomever wins this presidential race, there's going to be an outcry, so many demonstrations and protests, which is going on now. And even prior to this, there have been demonstrations and protests primarily dealing with the Black Lives Matter movement, with the unjust beating of African American men and killings. We just had one last week or week and a half. A gentleman in Philadelphia who was shot. He was having some mental issues. You had George Floyd, and it seemed like that's when things really got started after the murder of George Floyd. I want to ask you two gentlemen, what is your take on social movements, in particular the Black Lives Matter movement? Have you participated in protest march? Do you support it? Do you not support it? Let's start off with Jason.
As far as the Black Lives Matter, I'm a follower of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. You know, we feel that our problem is divine, you know, and it takes a divine solution in order to bring justice to our people. So as far as like, I don't attach because it's certain underlying messages that multiple, you know, organizations have and that I may not agree with, you know. So I don't get involved in, you know, things that is going to bring unrest to my family, you know.
Okay. Vernon?
Well, actively not in the Black Lives Matter. I support what they're trying to do, but at the same time, I'm at the age where my protesting days and getting out in the streets are pretty much over. I mean, but you know, I like I said, education is the best thing we can do in terms of those situations. What's happening in this country and is sad, in which we see the killings and of the police against Black Americans, and really the situation in Philadelphia. There could have been something totally different to de-escalate that situation. It's like if you're a Black man, it's like in the police. It seems like the police have this open reins on killing Black people, and they're getting off with it. George Floyd was a turnabout because it was filmed, but this has been going on forever. I mean, I remember going to college in 1974. I remember my father having to talk with me. Right, he said, "Listen, you're going through the South. It's different." Right, he said, "You have to make sure." He had to talk in terms of how to respect the police. And I came home for Thanksgiving. We were going back to Florida, and we were going through Georgia, and we got stopped. 4 of us in the car, Black, and state trooper pulled out the gun before he got up to the car. And we were there, and the training had to kick in. Yes, sir. We had to answer everything correctly. And that's in 1974. It's been going on way before that. I mean, and these are the type of things that we've learned. And again, we want to educate our youth more than anything about how to deal with that. It's a tough situation. This administration that's in office now has pretty much gaslighted everything that's going on. I mean, it's a shame of what's happening. And I pray that, this election turns out for the right side, because if it doesn't, I think we're going to have more unrest. And even if it does, we're going to have situations that are crazy. I was planning to go to Rehoboth this weekend, right, and do some fishing with my wife. And we have a family chat. And my son's saying, "Don't go because, what's going on right now." Mm-hmm. And, I hear what they're saying, but really to live in fear, that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to do what I'm going to do, regardless of what the outcome is. I pray to God, and He's my protection. So I don't worry about this. And my son goes, and talking about getting a gun. I don't need all that. I just, like I said, like the gentleman said, be in the right places at the right time, doing the right things. And that's your best bet of anything, and obeying the law.
Right. Jason, when I see you, we do see each other or I'm around you, I see that you refer to other African-American men as is my brother. And Vernon, I'm at your place and I see you say, "Hey, brother, how you doing?" And I think that's very significant, because I think all too often we as men, we want to refer to each other as the N-word. That's my N-I-G-G-A. That's my boy. That's my, in this and in that. I just don't like it, because I think it's a negative term. I think it's a term that's used for slavery. It's a term for oppressing our people. So for both of you gentlemen, if you could talk about the significance of referring to other African-American men as brothers and not the N-words. Let's start off with Jason, because you use that word quite a bit, man.
Yes, sir. Because when you refer to our people in particular as brothers, it gives you a sense of camaraderie. Communication. You can communicate, brother. And if you look at him like your brother, naturally you wouldn't want to do any harm to him. You would want to treat your brother like you treat yourself. Your family member. And it gives you a different level of understanding and love. We grew up, and the N-word was also used in that term of endearment. That's how these young people use it today. So it depending on who you're talking to, it may have the same significance, but the negative connotation of the two words, it does something to the psyche and the mind. So now I used to grow up using, that's my nigga, or whatever the case may be. But now, as I developed in wisdom and understanding, I changed that word to the real meaning of what the brothers assume nigga means today, a word of endearment, because when they say it in the hood or in our communities, that's how they feel it's coming out. So they don't feel anything wrong with using that terminology. But we have to change it to what it actually means. So that's why I use brother. I look at everybody as my brother. I don't want no problems. I want love, respect, and I want to treat you like I would want myself to be treated.
Right. Vernon?
It's a term that, brother is a term that I like to use with everybody, whether you're black, white, or whatever.
Mhm.
I'm calling you brother. I was fishing today, and there was a guy out there I was talking to. He's about 62, and we're talking, and talking, and really to use the word brother to him, I mean, is just as important as using it to another brother that's black, because
Really.
because we're all brothers,
Brother to him. I mean,
whether you like it or not.
right, right. That definitely. Um, you tell me. I want to talk about the females, um, because sometimes we as men, we may not respect females the way they should be respected. I see some posts on Facebook sometimes where a man he may open a door for a woman. He may pull out the chair for a woman. Um, he may buy flowers. He may buy candy. And there are those who say those type of men don't exist today. We don't open the doors for females. We don't pull out their chairs. We don't take their coats. As men, I always wanted to ask this question in this episode, but I haven't asked it yet. So let me ask it tonight. Have we as men, have we lost the respect of treating women with dignity and with honor? What is your take? Jason, Vernon, whoever wants to go first.
You know, from my experiences, I wasn't taught how to treat women properly. I haven't seen, you got to be taught those things, proper etiquette. A lot of us, like I grew up in a project, like many of us in these areas, and we're not taught to respect our women, so you got to have a man in the home or a man around you teaching you the proper etiquette, how to treat a woman, how to hold the door for, how to do this. You got to see it in order to learn it. So I didn't know none of that until I got older, and I met men who was married, and they showed me through their experiences how they treat their wives, which was foreign to me. Like, oh, you do that? Like open the door, doing this, and coming around, opening the door for her, taking a jacket, making sure that she's protected, holding her bags, respecting her. I didn't know all of that because we were, from my experience, I wasn't taught that. So a lot, I would say the same for our youth and others. A lot of us come from single family household. Our households is broken. Not too many of us see a man and a woman in a home functioning properly. So if you don't see that family dynamic, then you're not going to know. You grow up a man or a woman, woman ain't gonna know how to treat their man properly, how to keep house, and a man ain't gonna know how to treat their woman if they don't see that family dynamic. So it just has to be taught by men that is that's in the community that's living that etiquette.
All right. What's your take, Vernon?
Well, I had a very good example because my father, like I said, was a preacher. He's a pastor for over 60 years. And, I had no excuse but to know. And so I had a very good example. But my mind goes back to the late 60s, early 70s when all the black superhero movies came out. Shaft and The Mac and all those movies came out. And they were depicting that the black man was superior and that like no one understands Shaft but a woman, all that type of stuff that came out. And I think there was a lot of negativity that came out of those movies because the men had multiple women and things of that nature. So I think, really, from my mindset, looking at all those things, even though I was brought up the right way, it kind of, I look back often and say, well, why do I think the way I do about certain things, and especially women, the relationships? It's because of the way those movies were depicted. It was because of the way things were going on in the hood and people I knew. All right. And like the brother said, single family parents and homes and situations like that has led to the disrespect of a lot of black women. It's given me a respect for them to see how strong they were to raise sons and daughters on their own, right? But again, we had a lot of negativity come out of those movies that kind of skewed people's thinking in different ways, especially young Black men that particular time.
Right. Jason, you mentioned that you follow the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I heard people say that maybe 60, 70 years ago, there were good leaders. You had Dr. King, you had Malcolm, you had Marcus Garvey, you had Noah Drew Ali, you had Jesse Jackson. You had so many leaders that African Americans can follow in terms of improving the conditions in our communities. But they say today there's a lack of leadership. So, I mean, today, do we need leaders? I mean, are there leaders? Do we become our own leaders? What do you gentlemen say about leaders in the African American community?
I would say we have to be the leaders that we have to be the examples of the leaders that we desire to see. So we have to step up today because from our communities, it lacks leadership or it lacks guidance, per se, or lacks love. And where there's no love and there's no guidance and there's no men, you see the condition of it. There was a saying that we used to always, say that good men, evil exists because good men stand around and do nothing. So we all have a sense of responsibility to be able to be vanguards of our community. It shouldn't be up to just one person to change the whole environment of the United States or of the world. It's too much to put on a person. They need the help of you and I. So we have to have that leadership qualities and that that mindset to go out there and try to help our people change our conditions. So leadership should be in all of us, not just one person today. We all have a sense of responsibility.
You have any take on that, Vernon?
Yeah, well, I think it does come from us. Every Black man is on the earth really has a responsibility to his community. One of the ways that I've given to my community and to our brothers, young brothers and sisters, I coached for 34 years. Coached basketball, I coached track, and through the school system, rec leagues everywhere. And I think that was, for me, that was rewarding because I was able to touch kids' lives. I was able to show them, I got a couple of technical fouls holding up for my kids. But at the same time, I think they knew the love that I had for them. I recall I was in practice one day with one of my basketball teams, and one of the kids said, "Coach, why you cussing me out like that?" And I said, "What do you mean cuss you out?" I said, "I don't curse." He said, "Well, it felt like you did." And I said, "Well, yeah, that's because I'm on you because I love you. I want you to do the right thing." I think sometimes I've seen coaches and teachers and administrators ease up on kids so much that there's no respect for the coach or the teacher. I think we have a responsibility not to be so, like a parent that's so friendly with the kid all the time. I think we have to get up. Sometimes we have to get in their faces. Sometimes we have to be stern on them, but we also have to show the love. You know what I'm saying? And if we don't do that, it's like if you read the Bible, if you read the Quran, if you don't discipline the child, you don't love them. And I think that's what we're lacking in terms of leadership. We're not actually we're not getting on that kid no more because again, we're in fear of repercussions from the parents. Right? Well, you told my kid this. Well, listen, if that's the case, then the parent has a problem. I don't have a problem telling your kid the right thing or encouraging them to do the right thing. I think that's one thing that we've been kind of watered down on. We're not community-based. We're not dealing with each other in a way that's significant. We're so afraid of the backlash. And that's a problem for our community. I mean, if we're going to be leaders, if we're going to be leaders, if we're going to be a boss, sometimes we're going to have to get right with people. And, but again, at the end of it all, we have to have an understanding. And we have to have a dialogue. And I think that's really what's missing.
Right. Okay, so once again, both of you gentlemen are businessmen. So as we close out the program, I'm going to give both of you gentlemen an opportunity to let the people know how they can contact you so they can support your business. And then I'm going to give you gentlemen up to about 2 to 3 minutes each to say any closing comments in terms of what you want to say to the people in the community and the people that's watching. So let's start off with Vernon.
Well, you know where I am. I'm at 38th and Market on Fridays from 11 to 6. Every Friday from March until September. And we have that fish fry there, and you can come get a delicious fish sandwich, shrimp, crab cakes, macaroni and cheese, greens. Sometimes I do a little bit of everything. All right, we do the whole menu, and it's at a decent price. And just encourage you to come out when we're open. All right, right now, if you have any needs as far as weddings, parties, any type of thing, we do all office parties, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I'm a full service caterer. I do a little bit of everything. So you can contact us at Burns Catering at hotmail.com. That's my email address. My number is 302-290-6214. And you can reach me at any time at that number.
Okay, and you have any closing comments for tonight's program for people that's watching in terms of how we can improve as a community?
I think how we can communicate more as a community, I think really we have different locations that we can support. One is the Powell Center where I work out of. Powell Center, we got the Browns Boys Club. We got all kinds of recreation facilities across the city. Most of them I worked at. I worked for Parks and Recreation for 5 years. So I've been in communication with most of those different community centers. I think really that's one place where we could hold meetings and things of that nature throughout the community. And I think there's, I think really more than anything that we really need to pray. I think that's the one thing we need right now today is to pray.
Okay. All right, Jason, your business information and closing comments.
Yes, sir. My business is Prominent Insurance Services. We're located downtown Wilmington. We service the tri-state area, multiple states throughout America. We do auto, we do personal lines, which consists of auto, home, business, and then we do business as well, commercial, general liability, consultants, professional liability. So we cover the whole gamut, and we also have a life insurance division. So anything dealing with insurance related, we cover the whole gamut. Any resources that you need learning about insurance or having questions about claims or anything, we can be a resource. We can be found online at prominentagency.com, or you can hit me on Facebook, Jason Rodriguez, and I'm very accessible, and I do, answer back. And the telephone number as well to reach us is 302-351-3368. And as far as what we need to do as a people, I would suggest just start, spreading love, being more responsible, learning. And if everybody doesn't have it, you need to, read the book, Message to the Black Man by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. There's a lot of guidance in there for today's time. So there's a lot of things that, I strive to do and be a better person for myself and my community, so it could resonate throughout our community, and we can be an example that we want to see. So I thank you, brother, for the platform and the opportunity to be on your show. I appreciate it.
No problem. I respect both of you gentlemen, equally. We're well respected. So I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in and watching today's program. Please share, like, and follow. And I'll be on again next Tuesday, 7 o'clock, with episode 10 of the Conversation with Men of Color. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and patience, and I wish you the best of luck.
Likewise.
Thank you.